Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love. I'm in Toronto.
Welcome to episode 1700 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Yes, we are open. An award-winning podcast from Moneris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. Christy Pitts has the best baseball in the city outside the dome. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Building Toronto Skyline, a podcast and book from Nick Iones, sponsored by Fusion Corp Construction Management Inc. and Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Joining me today, making his Toronto Mic debut, from the Watchmen, it's Joey Serlin. Welcome, Joey.
Hi. Just taking it all in here.
Take it all in, man. Process everything. Yeah. I need to crack open my Great Lakes beer right now because when you showed up, I was weeding.
I know, I saw that.
And I think I got choked up in the middle of the intro, and I feel like it's like allergies or something.
Ragweed.
So let's get some ragweed out of here with some Great Lakes. So
all right.
I've got a Sunnyside Session IPA.
Well played on the crack.
That's the Irish Crickets.
Yeah.
That's what we call that. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing to meet you. Huge fan of the Watchmen. I think you guys are way underappreciated in this country.
Thank you. Well, thanks for saying so.
Do you agree?
I do too. Yes, I do.
I mean, we're going to walk through a few of the big radio jams that, any Gen Xer heard all over alt-rock radio in the 90s, and we're going to talk about a few things. But as people listen to these songs, I hope they realize you guys are like top-tier Canadian rock band if you're looking at the 1990s.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say we fall into that category. Incredible fan base, so which is allowing us to continue to ride that wave today, right? Considering the last time we put out released new music, it's I think it's accurate to say that 90s heyday is kind of keeping us going now.
It's in the rear view mirror, but people are still coming out. When is your next live date in the GTA?
GTA is June 14th, Danforth Music Hall, coming up.
Amazing.
Yep.
So in attendance, among many others, will be Michael Lang. And by the way, Michael Lang is going to be at my event on June 26th. Joey, you're invited. It's called TMLX 19. It's at Great Lakes Brewery from 6 to 9 p.m. That's a Thursday night. This will be the 19th Toronto Mic'd listener experience that Michael Lang attends. He's 19 for 19.
Nice. And what happens there? Tell me about it.
Well, Palma Pasta feeds you.
Mm-hmm.
I have in my freezer right now, Joey, a large lasagna that is going home with you.
Oh, there you go. I can cook for once. Make my wife happy. Yeah.
Make your wife happy.
Yeah.
Great Lakes is going to buy you your first beer, and I have some fresh craft beer from Great Lakes going home with you, Joey.
Look at that.
And really, you just hang out with FOTMs. It's really a chill event. You come out, you chat it up. It's everybody has a great time. You would dig it. But I brought up Michael Lang not just because he's 19 for 19, but he's like the biggest Watchmen fan I know. And here's a quote from him. He goes, "I just told my sons Joey Serlin is making his Toronto Mic debut. And the older one described him as, quote, the dad of the guy from the Guelph Storm."
That's my recent claim to fame. Yeah, that's the new thing. Yeah.
So tell us about your son. You're wearing a Guelph Storm hat.
Yeah. Yeah, he's playing for the Guelph Storm currently in the OHL. He is going into his fourth year of major junior, and he's pursuing the dream. And we often talk about what he's going after is not, in a lot of ways, unlike what I did with music when I was at the exact same age. It's you gotta have the talent, but it's not just about talent. It's about hard work, right place, right time. And there's a lot of parallels we draw often when we talk about our different career trajectories.
What's your son's name?
Leo.
Okay, so playing for the Guelph Storm.
Yeah.
Does he have NHL dreams?
He does. Yeah, he does.
Okay. Were you a good player?
I was a good player. Yeah. Yeah. Not, I enjoyed it. I knew from a young age, 12, 13, that music was my passion. So I didn't play at a super high level, but I played enough to play. I was a different player than he is. He's a good player. He's skilled. I was a little bit, a little rougher, got into some scraps, did that kind of thing. But
your elbows were up.
Yes, they were. Yeah.
I talked to a lot of Canadian musicians on this program. Mm-hmm. In fact, you're the fourth and final member of the Watchmen to make his debut.
I'm the last.
You're the last.
Yeah.
I saved the best for last.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do around here.
Yeah.
But like many a Canadian musician, you can talking to them, they wish they were hockey players. Like they still play hockey, and it's like, I don't know, Andrew Scott from Sloan, he says 7 or 8 games a week.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, I play with a lot of musicians.
But the musicians want to be hockey players.
Yeah, they do.
And the hockey players want to be musicians. Like there's a lot of interesting yin and yang there.
It is, yeah, yeah. There's definitely a lot of passionate musicians that are very, very passionate about hockey, and I've played in a few of those leagues. I still do. Yeah. So
congrats to your boy playing for the Guelph Storm. We're going in OHL, a very high caliber, exceptional hockey. Like this is massive. This is where everybody first kind of watched. Bobby Orr or Eric Lindros.
Endless list. Yeah.
Chris Pronger. I'm trying to think of all the NHL greats.
You'd be there a long time if you went after that list. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a feeder
Connor
league for
McDavid,
sure.
right? Mitch Marner. We can keep going here. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to get you to Guelph, and I want to talk some Watchmen, and then find out what you're up to now. But I got a nice note from a guy named Craig Clicks, and I met Craig actually at Christie Pitts. He's like a photographer, and he was taking photos of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. Have you ever seen the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team?
I have, yeah. I used to live right by Christie Pitts, very close to it. So I'd, walk the dog and stop and watch some games. Well, you're going to love this book I'm giving you. So I mentioned you got the lasagna, you got the beer, you're getting a history of Toronto Maple Leafs baseball book. Look at this thing. Wow.
Okay, and I'm going to be, by the way, I'm throwing out the first pitch on Sunday. I feel like you should be throwing out that first pitch. I don't know. That's intimidating. How you feeling about it? Well, I did throw out the first pitch for a game last year, and I kind of decided I'd be like, I'm going to be Dave Stieb up here. So I did a full windup, and I really let it fly, and it did one bounce into the catcher, like because you're coming off the mound, and I threw it a bit low. Yeah. So my goal on Sunday is I want to throw a strike. I know the batter would have swung and missed at that pitch I threw last year, but I want to like a called strike. So that's my goal on Sunday. You want to be in the strike zone. Now it's going to be like 40 miles an hour or something, but there's I'm going to throw a strike. That's the goal. But I bring up Craig Clicks not just because he takes pictures of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, but he sent me a picture of a compilation he has. So we're going to go back to Winnipeg with this one, but it's called, can you see my screen? So it's called Rock Showdown. Oh, yes. Canada's national homegrown competition. Yeah. And he's got this. Yeah. And I guess there's a song from the Watchmen called One Man Gone. Yes. What can you tell us, for the record, definitively, what can you tell us about this compilation? Well, that was, that's going back, obviously. But you would start, there was regional battle of the bands, basically. And we won for the Prairies, which won us a trip to Toronto to play on a televised final. So it was a national TV show. And believe it or not, Jim Carrey hosted that because he was not the Jim Carrey of household name. He was Yuck Yuck's Jim Carrey. Yeah. So he hosted it. Special surprise guest that came out at the end to do a song was Platinum Blonde. Wow. And we were 18, 19 years old. And that was one of the first original songs that I wrote. One Man Gone. We didn't win. I believe a Montreal band called Cinema 5 or something won. And, but what you did get was to be included in the release. And that was distributed nationally. Do you remember what network aired this live?
It would have been a Canadian, like
YTV?
No, it would have been like a CT. I think it was like a CTV or a
CTV.
CBC or probably CTV or something. Yeah.
Okay, and Jim Carrey's hosting this thing.
Yeah.
I did look for some footage. I want to find some footage of this. That's amazing. And you guys are like teenagers.
We're not even 20 yet. And I remember being in the hall. We knew it was Platinum Blonde, and the door opened, and I looked into their dressing room, and it was full of women and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's...
Well, when you say stuff, you mean cocaine.
Yes, yeah, I do. Yeah.
You can say, okay, you got to tell it like it is on the show.
All right, I can say
so
what
Mark Holmes, I can see him like at the end of Scarface or whatever. He's like, just a pile of like coke.
And I think they did a cover. I think they did Some Kind of Wonderful.
Okay.
I think.
They didn't go with one of their many original Canadian hits.
I don't know why, but anyway.
Okay, so I just
and I think we're the only band that's still around.
No, I mean, that's wild that your origin story. So because in a minute I'm going to play like the first Watchmen song most people heard, which was from McLaren Furnace Room. So I need to build you up to that.
Okay.
I guess that's 92. So maybe share a little bit about like how do the Watchmen come together and what brings you to that, showdown in Toronto where you're in Canada's national homegrown competition. And then like what happens between that moment, which I think would be a big deal for a bunch of teenagers from Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And recording McLaren Furnace Room.
So you want me to go way back?
Go back, man. Let's go back.
Well,
in the time machine with me, Joey. Let's go.
Sammy and Danny and I were in our first band as very young, like junior high kids. And then as we got older into high school, I joined a band with a bunch of other guys. First, one of which was Pete Lavin, who was the bassist on McLaren. Drummer Grant Page, who was the first Watchmen drummer, but never played on any of the albums or demos or anything. Maybe he did one demo. And I got a singer named John Delaney. And we had a band called Jared and the Ghost. And I started playing bars with these guys. They're all up like 3-4 years older than me. I was still underage, but sneaking into bars and playing with them. Eventually, I asked Danny to come replace the singer. I sound so callous and cold, but then I asked Sammy to come in and replace the drummer, and Pete stuck around, and that became the Watchmen.
Okay, did they have a name before the Watchmen?
No, as soon as they joined, we came up with a new name. And
so the OG members, the founding members, if you will, of the Watchmen, Danny Graves, who I'm just remembering, he played live at a TMLX event a couple years back.
Oh, did he?
And it was like a cappella because that's how he rolls. Mm-hmm. And it was a beautiful sky. And I just remember like I was there and he's doing like, I think he's doing Sweet Baby James.
Yeah.
And it was just magic. Like shout out to Danny Graves, one of the greatest voices in rock, not just Canadian rock, but in rock. One of the greatest voices I've ever heard.
I agree completely. I am
no bias there.
No, I have always celebrated that and have never been shy about saying that. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have had the career we had. That's for sure.
And I mean, just have him go acoustic, and you can hear this guy can sing.
Yeah, I think that's where he really shines, and that's why those a cappella songs that he has a pretty vast repertoire of them, but it's always a special moment in our shows, and we never really know what he's going to do. He just goes up there and picks one.
So go to my YouTube channel, everybody. Find Danny. I have, I think he did the Highwaymen.
Yep.
He did, of course, Sweet Baby James. Mm-hmm. And, geez, off the top of my head, I can't remember the rest. But is he doing all right? Because I know you canceled last year. You canceled some shows. Is Daniel Graves doing okay?
He's doing amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's doing great.
Can't tell you how happy. I know he's been singing since then, but when I got the news it was postponed, I'm like, oh, I hope Danny's okay.
Yeah, no, he's better than ever and doing fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. So you got Danny on vocals, you got yourself, your guitars?
Yep. Guitar.
Sammy Cohn, who another beloved FOTM, been on the show, several times, and he had a short-lived podcast with Cam Gordon at Twitter Canada that I even appeared on to celebrate Shakespeare My Butt by Lois Did Alone, and it created some interesting sound bites. Sammy, not a fan of the band. Okay, so Sammy Cohn, love you, buddy.
Not? No? Maybe not that album, because he is funny. We rehearsed on Sunday, and he was really going on about how much he loves their new album.
Okay, so I don't want to put words in his mouth because I know he's listening. So he said something to the effect of how Lowest of the Low were huge in Toronto, which is true, and that's where I'm from, but they couldn't fill the Commodore Ballroom, or just something about how it was a Toronto phenomena.
Could be.
Which maybe it's true because I only know everything from a Toronto perspective here.
Yeah.
Because I had Ron Hawkins and Lawrence Nichols over last week to talk about the new album. And I've stopped bringing up the... I didn't want to cause a CanCon rock war.
But I don't think it's uncommon, especially in Canada, for your hometown to be your strongest market. And I think we could say the same thing for Winnipeg. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with what stations are playing the hell out.
It's true.
But I would say with the Watchmen, as opposed to maybe different from Lowest to Low, is here in Toronto, 102.1 played the shit out of the Watchmen.
Yeah.
And we had much music where there's no Lowest to Low and much music.
Yeah.
There was lots of Watchmen.
Yes, there
music.
was. Yeah, I'd
so
say
maybe I agree with Sammy.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to it for sure.
And this Pete gentleman who, so Pete, why does Pete only appear on the one album before Ken Tizard comes in?
Pete did he did the first album. We toured, obviously leading up to the album. We did a lot of, it's funny, Pete put in a lot of the hard, like, there was always hard work, but he put in that kind of really disgusting road grind where you had one room for 4 guys or you're sleeping on floors, and he put in all that legwork. And then we put out the first album and we toured really, really hard for it. Like, it was crazy. Our manager, Jake Gold, at the time, it was kind of an old school mentality of win them over one fan at a time, and we were doing 2 shows a day in different places. Anyway, I think it burnt Pete out quite a bit. And then Pete was fortunate enough to be in a financial situation through his family where he didn't have to do it anymore, so he chose not to do it. Yeah.
And then Ken took his spot.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Okay. So sounds like you guys are working your butts off. And then McLaren Furnace Room, like, how does that album get recorded? Like, you're not with Jake Gold yet.
No. So I wrote almost that whole album. I think Danny wrote the lyrics on one song, and then one song musically came out of a band jam. But other than that, I wrote the whole album. So we had this collection of songs.
Hey, can I play a bit of one and then we'll pick it up again?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
You can enjoy your coffee there.
Thank you. Yeah.
I know you're only like 2 feet away from me, but I swear to you, I'm listening to this in the headphones and I'm just fucking loving it. Cracked.
Yeah.
Okay, so because I want to bring in another, so FOTM is friend of Toronto Mike, and I'm bringing in, of course, Jake Gold at some point here. But before I get Jake Gold in this story, Chris Wardman's in this story. He's been on the program because he was in Blue Peter. You know this.
Yes. Yeah.
And he produced the album, that Chalk Circles album that gave us April Fool. Chris Wardman does a lot of great work, actually.
Yeah.
But please, so maybe how does Chris Wardman enter the Watchmen story?
So Chris's wife, Joni, I'm trying to connect the dots. I'm going back a long time, but
take your time.
Yeah. So Chris, somehow she heard our demo that we had self-produced, or actually Kenny Greer produced it from Red Rider. Okay, so I think she got a demo to Chris, And Chris really liked it. He liked the songs. And we really liked Chris as well. Like, we were all, at the time, we really loved Sons of Freedom and the album Gump. We loved the bass sound. Our Pete, our bassist, kind of had a very really similar, like, driven SVT sound. We loved his kind of raw approach to production. So Chris came to, we were in Toronto. We were doing a residency playing every Tuesday night for 4 Tuesdays in a row. And Chris came out before doors opened, and we just played all of our songs for him live off the floor at the Horseshoe.
The Horseshoe, okay.
And he really liked it. So I'm trying to remember if it was Jake first or Chris first. I think it might have been Jake first.
Okay, this is the kind of detail I'm curious about, because, you know, the legend, I don't want to print the legend right now. The legend has it that Chris Wardman's girlfriend sees you guys at the Horseshoe Tavern in 1991.
Oh, maybe that's it. Yeah. And got him to come out. And then Ralph James, who has been our agent since we were 16, I could tell you a funny story about how he became our agent, but he got Jake and Alan Gregg out too, a similar circumstance. They liked us. They signed us to a development deal and an indie. They had a label called Sumo Productions.
Right.
We signed to their record company, and then Chris produced it.
Okay, Jake Gold, Alan Gregg, this story is legendary, but the Management Trust, their big client at this time is the Tragically Hip.
Yeah.
Okay, Alan Gregg just popped over for the first time earlier this
did he
year.
really?
And it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And if he ever comes back again, I'm going to make sure we do 75% of that episode about the Watchmen.
Okay.
Okay, that's my pledge to you.
No, I always enjoyed Alan very much. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So, Jake Gold, the Management Trust, Alan Gregg, this is leads to McLaren Furnace Room getting released by what, MCA?
Yeah, MCA was a distribution company for Sumo. Everybody worked on spec. So Chris worked on spec. Wyndham Sound, which was a studio at the time, worked on spec. Engineers, everybody. And it ended up being a gold album, so everybody got paid eventually.
What role do you think
Yeah.
Much Music plays in all this? Because I mentioned, it's interesting that I had Lois Little over last week, and now I'm talking to you because I loved Shakespeare My Butt. Mm-hmm. Got a lot of radio play, a lot of 102.1 The Edge radio play, but there's no Much Music exposure for Shakespeare My Butt. But meanwhile, Cracked, which I just played, and Run and Hide,
Yeah.
like these are videos we're watching in the early 90s on Much.
Mm-hmm.
Like what role does Much Music play in all?
Oh, they helped. I mean, they could do in one week of video rotation could take care of easily a month's worth of touring. So between that and then getting some radio play, and then the live touring, it all kind of aligned and just led to successful indie album.
Very cool. Now, at this point, does Jake have you opening up for the Tragically Hip already, or does that come like later?
It came pretty quickly. They were very supportive. Came maybe a little later, but it came with a lot of regularity, and we really got to know those guys, and they were just like blowing up between the first 2 albums. And we did a lot of dates with them for Road Apples, and it was just so exciting to watch them.
Yeah, you kind of had a front row seat for this meteoric rise of the
we really did. We really did. If anything, the biggest challenge was not to have them influence us too much and maintain our own identity, because they were so exciting to watch, right? And there were some comparisons. I guess we had the same record company, the same management, but I like to think we're our own band,
I think you're your own band for sure. There's never any pressure from like Jake Gold to be like the Tragically Hip Junior?
No, never. I mean, I think he tried to implement the same blueprint from a business perspective that they utilized to blow up, i.e. all the touring and the repetitive markets and how you would go back and keep hitting the same markets over and over. But obviously they were a phenomenon and took it to a much higher level. But I think to some extent Jake tried to draw on their blueprint.
Well, it only makes sense. The Hip were the most successful band in the country.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay, geez. And I can't tell. So I was a big Watchmen fan, but I saw the Tragically Hip also as often as I could. And I lost track of how many times I got to enjoy the Watchmen opening up for the Tragically Hip. Like, it really became like a tandem. but I really dug it.
Yeah, and they were just great. I'm sure at times them again, because they could actually, they were in such a position to help so many people's careers, and I think they did, especially with another Roadside Attraction with, they had the bigger artists, but they also had a second stage where they could help a lot of bands.
And I think it helped. I will say this about these two bands, the Tragically Hip and the Watchmen, is that you are like created organically from buds. You know what I mean? Like, other than Ken, who comes in a bit later, like the three of you outside of Ken Tizzard, you guys are just, it sounds like you start your band together as teens or even pre-teens. Like, you're super young, right?
Yeah, no, there's a brotherhood there. There's a bond. I mean, I met Danny in kindergarten.
And is Sammy Danny's cousin?
Yep, their moms are sisters. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're a band out of Winnipeg. So the hip. Also, neither of you are from like massive cities. Like, you're not Toronto bands or Montreal bands or whatever. Even a Vancouver band. So you got. I mean, Winnipeg's got an NHL team. I'm not saying they're
Yeah.
But Kingston, Winnipeg. When you're coming up in Winnipeg, so I'm gonna get you to In the Trees here. But
yeah.
Like, who are the heroes? Is it Randy Bachman and Burton Cummings? Like, who are the Winnipeg heroes that you guys are emulating or looking up to?
I don't know. Winnipeg had it. Neil Young is our adopted, and I was a big fan of Neil Young. I think what the Guess Who showed you is that it was possible to break out of Winnipeg and have a music career out of Winnipeg. I don't know how much I don't think their music influenced us so much. I was a fan, but I don't think it made its way into our music.
No, the Sheepdogs took it.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny, Winnipeg has these eras, and then they had this kind of like 80s era with Harlequin and Street Heart, and I'd say our influences that weren't necessarily Winnipeg bands or Winnipeg artists, but we kind of they paved the way as Winnipeg being a viable place for musicians to come out of. But I think our influences were more international than that.
Well, seeing a band from your city make it huge, it's similar to when I talk to the guys from Sloan and they talk about April Wine. It's the same deal. Like, April Wine is a big deal, not just here in the Maritimes or whatever. Is a huge deal all over the place. So, similar deal. By the way,
don't forget Crash Test Dummies at the time were.
Crash Test Dummies, massive, because
and they were right next to us. Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, Chantal Kreviazek breaks. She was a big deal too.
Yep.
So you had a whole bunch of Winnipeg kind of popping up here. All right. So you mentioned you were the main songwriter. Mm-hmm. So when does that change? Like, it sounds like that first album is almost all you writing the music.
Yeah, changed. Actually, Ken had a lot to do with it because he came in. He almost in some cases played guitar on bass. So whereas Pete was very much a backbone bassist and very incredibly solid. Ken was way more melodic. And brought in riffs like, All Uncovered, which starts with a bass riff, or Lusitana. And so that led to a lot more jamming and songs coming out of just spending time together in a room, as opposed to me coming in and teaching everybody a song and then they put their stamp on it. So I'd say that, and then that opened the door for Danny to start to say, you know what, I'm going to write lyrics for this one. And it took a lot of pressure off me, that's for sure, because there's a lot of expectation after the success of the first album, and then we signed directly to a major for the second album.
Yeah, a lot of pressure now.
Yeah, so I was happy to share the duties.
And possibly, again, here I am pretending like I know what I'm talking about, but maybe seeing how the hip works, where, Gord is the principal lyricist, and he's kind of maybe Danny is inspired or influenced maybe by what Gord's doing.
Yeah, you know what? I think I could be wrong. I'm not an expert, but I think the first album, a lot of that was Gord Sinclair's lyrics.
Oh, up to here?
Yeah, and then similar to us, Gord Downey wanted to write his own lyrics, but I could be wrong. But
In the Trees, the biggest album you guys ever put out.
Yeah.
like not just radio and much, although it kind of kicks off with Boneyard Tree, and I remember it was like Love at First Listen with Boneyard Tree. That was a huge jam.
Yep. Yeah.
And you already referenced another song, but I'm gonna play a bit of it because I fucking love it. And then there's a question that came in about it, and I'm wondering if we can get more details about this song from you, Joey. You ready? This gives you a chance to relax, listen back to. I'm sure you don't spend a lot of time listening to studio recordings of old Watchmen songs.
No, I don't.
Here we go. I told Sammy this is one of my favorite songs of all time. So.
It's not like 5 years ago. Lately you're over my body. Is that just a place that I want you to be? Look at the pictures you've gotten, and like signals from oncoming cars. We're covered in the cake from the last time. I know it sounds weird, we collect it in jars. Is that just the place that I wanna be? Oh, can't you see it's the last time I need? Please don't make this thing up for me. The way that I wanna be.
Who's singing this part right now?
That's me.
That's you?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a gentleman named Greg Jones who says, I may be remembering this wrong, but didn't Paul Murray from Sandbox sing the pre-chorus on All Uncovered?
No, Paul didn't.
Greg is remembering this wrong.
Paul Sandbox opened for us for like a lot of dates, so maybe Paul came up and took my part, which a few people have done over the years.
Okay, so that's you. That's you. So there's no cameo appearances from any other bands in All Uncovered. It's all the Watchmen.
No. We're not the string quartet playing on that, but that's no one else sang on it. Yeah.
Who wrote the lyric, buckle me in on the highway to sin?
Danny wrote that. Danny wrote all the lyrics.
Great fucking lyric.
It is.
I bet you there's a lot of tattoos across this country.
Yeah, you know, there was a condom company that took that line and put it on the back of their condoms.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Did they pay you?
No, they didn't. No.
All right, it's not too late. Talk to Jake.
Yeah, all right, talk to Jake, yeah.
Hold on, I'm playing it up again. Hold on.
Okay.
I like this part.
That's just the way. That's just the way. All I gather is that's just the way.
Who's doing that part there? That doo-doo-doo-doo.
That's Danny on a harmonica. And then he hands it off for a guitar solo here, yeah.
All right, so now the band has multiple songwriters at play here, and In the Trees is your big breakthrough.
Yeah.
Okay, when you listen back in the headphones, I'm naturally curious when you're listening to All Uncovered now. What are you thinking as you listen to this song?
I'm proud of it, actually. This is one song that I'm very proud of. Whereas some of the... It's tough when you write songs when you're really young. Like some of the songs that made it onto the first album, I was 17 years old. And I mean, in some ways, maybe it's good because there's no filter and it's just kind of this unabashed output of ideas and emotions. But as you get older, those ideas are refined and more crafted. And I think this song definitely indicates that there's a maturity coming for the band. Working in a 3/4 time signature, which I think is great. I remember writing this or working on this song with the guys, and I thought this is awesome.
No, definitely. So, and this is if my memory serves correctly. This is the follow-up, so this is the second single, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you got Boneyard Tree comes out as the big hard rocker, and this you slow it. This is the move, right?
This is the move. This is
The template.
it helped. We'll put it that way. it to kind of help launch the thing. Yeah.
I feel like Jake used that template with the hip too. Like the first song will be Little Bones or something. Like, so I feel like Boneyard Tree is your Little Bones, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, this song, and we did the video, and it was actually a good video, I thought. Yeah,
the reflection in the tire rim, is it? Is that the
hubcap?
Hubcap,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's about a
right.
conjugal visit. I don't know how that got in there, but I guess Highway of Sin. I don't know, but
yeah. Have you played much music?
heavy play. Yeah,
So things are happening now. So again,
yeah.
the one thing about talking to you is you guys. Sometimes you get a band. They got like 20 albums. Like I'm not going to be able to talk about each one, but I might be able to touch on each one because. What is it? Is it 4 or 5 albums that we're talking about in the 5? Okay, yeah, right. We'll talk about it. But Sammy's got 4. You guys got 5.
Yes.
To be discussed.
Yeah.
Okay. Get ready, Sammy. Okay. So now we're in 94. I suppose it's 94 when In the Trees drops and things are cooking, and then next 2 albums, Brand New Day and Silent Radar.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're cool, I'm going to play a bit of another song.
Sure.
Since you're my prisoner here.
Yeah.
In the air, the tension lingers, evident in pointing fingers. From the ride, the steam it rises in this tomb of no surprises. Never knowing what they mean, not quite in tune with their scheme. Suspect me of an empty shell, but I guess it's just as well. What good are you? Hey, sweet perfection, sanity values. The weight of all my worries, I be the truth I seek. So plant the seed and let it run its course, of course.
All right, how do I put this? So, In the Trees was a massive commercial success, your big breakthrough. Did you guys feel a lot of pressure to follow that up? I'm just wondering why this album doesn't sell as well as its predecessor.
We weren't ready to do this album at all. There's a funny story that we always talk about. I think it was the Rolling Stones. They were asked the same question, and I think Mick Jagger's answer was, "Well, we had it all together. We had a great studio producer, but somebody forgot to pack the tunes." You know.
It's the song.
So we had this song I wrote, and we had a handful ready, but
Like, Shut Up was a good song.
"Shut Up" was a good song. But I also think we were maybe a little overconfident too, and felt like we didn't need to be ready, and we could go in and figure it all out in the studio, and it would be our poor man's attempt at, say, a Beatles album or something, where we were gonna just experiment and let it all happen, and we brought in trumpets and tried bossa nova songs and everything, and I think it just kind of lacked focus, and it might have been a little bit premature for that album. Probably should have done something closer to In the Trees until we solidified. Live and learn, you know. It's there are definitely some moments. One of my favorite songs on that album is called My Favorite One, which sounds a lot like the intro to Law and Order, the TV show, but it's still a really good song, and I love Dan. It's about Danny's grandmother, and I'm proud of moments of it, but as a whole, that album kind of fell flat, and I'd be the first to admit it, you know.
And you kind of talk about your hubris or whatever, that, okay, let's bring in the harps. Whatever.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah, I know. And so Doug Olson produced In the Trees.
Right.
Goes by Mr. Coulson. We had him in to do this album too, and he kind of pushed us in this whole direction of, I'm not trying to blame him, it was a group effort, but he said, no, let's just figure it out and it'll be a great time.
You'll figure it out
Yeah.
in the like live on the floor.
Yeah.
It'll all come together.
Yeah. And
But you didn't do that for In the Trees.
No, in the Trees, I think we had enough ideas. We had a lot of time between, and we after McLaren, and we toured so much in McLaren that we would write on the road, and we had a lot of songs ready to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you say toured a lot, we're talking like 150 gigs a year, right?
Yeah, or if not more.
If not more.
We used to go, I think we did a tour where we were out for 3.5 months, and then we came home, and I think I was home for 3 days, and we went out again.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Got to put in the work there. Okay. So I will say that only because it's fresh in my mind, because Alan Gregg was just here earlier in 2025, but the sub, so they had I'm telling you stuff, but Fully Completely was massive, like a big commercial success. And then the follow-up, Day for Night, Alan Gregg says he got to hear, listen to it, and he said, it's not done. It's missing the songs. Like, he was really disappointed with Day for Night.
Yeah.
And the guys, of course, being the Tragical Hip, are like, no, it's done. Like, that's the album. And it was kind of an interesting insight from Alan Gregg. And this is sort of the falling out of when Alan Gregg and the...
So how did it do in comparison? I never really followed their numbers.
I don't think it was... I mean, the two big songs are really not commercial songs. Like, it's Nautical Disaster and Grace 2.
Yeah.
Right? And those are songs hip fans love.
Yep.
And a lot of music fans love. And those are the two songs they played on Saturday Night Live when they were on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, it's true.
Because they were the two singles off the new album, which was Day for Night. But those are not...
There's no intention.
Courage or...
Yeah, there's no intention of a radio hit there either.
Right. But Fully Completely was loaded with radio hits.
Well, maybe they felt the same way. They just like, we're going to do what we want,
Yeah.
at this point.
But do you ever have any interference from the good people like Jake Gold? Oh, well, that wouldn't be Jake's, it would be Alan Gregg, I suppose. So I'm trying to think timeline. Is Alan Gregg still around? Because he kind of departs earlier. But any pressure to write a big Much Music hit, write a big radio hit?
No, I wish somebody would have said something.
That's funny, because a lot of times it's like even Sloan. I'm bringing up the same bands because they're top of mind because they were just over. But this Coax Me, what's that album called again? Twice Removed.
Yeah.
No, Twice Removed. The studio, I think it was DG. What is the initials for Geffen there?
DGC.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
They are like, we're not putting this out. Like, you have to record this again. They literally, came from Andrew Scott earlier. He said that they asked the band to re-record Twice Removed because they wanted another Smeared. And I just wonder, where the line is between artistic integrity and, we need to sell tickets. And especially back in the 90s, you need to sell CDs.
I know. Yeah. It's, maybe it was the time, but there was not a lot of pressure. Maybe they thought they had the singles that they needed with Incarnate and Shut Up, and then you guys in Zoom, maybe, and then you guys can do what you want with the rest of it.
Back in the 90s, I'm going to give a history lesson to the kids. You really could sell a lot of albums with 3 singles. Like, I'm thinking of Avril Lavigne. Like, Avril Lavigne had 3 hits, and how many copies of, what was it called, Let's Go or whatever?
Yeah.
3 solid radio Much Music singles can carry an album.
Yes, and maybe that's why they thought we could do that. But at the end of the cycle, they weren't happy, I'll tell you that.
You got a Juno nom, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, which is nice. Yeah.
Have you ever won a Juno?
I have never. Well, no. Once again, the Hip always won every time. Every time we were nominated, they would win.
Every time you're nominated for a Juno, the Tragically Hip wins it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking of all the. You get a great tennis player or something who has to play in the same era as Roger Federer or something like that, and it's like, that's just.
I was producing a band up at the Bathhouse, the Hip Studio in Kingston, and they had this big...
What band, by the way?
They were called the Populars. They're a good power trio. And right in the mix room was a framed Juno presentation thing, and we were there as the nominee.
It's an honor to be nominated.
Honor to be nominated. Or the good one is, I used to always say, I don't care if I win.
Until you win.
Yeah.
Same here. I'm like, who gives a fuck about a goddamn Grammy? Like, I don't want to win an award, but if I ever won one, I'd probably put it on every social media channel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe I'd issue a press release or something.
Yeah.
Prestigious award won by Toronto Mike. All right, I'm also a Pearl Jam fan. Not a Canadian band though, but Adam Casper. Okay.
Yeah.
So you bring in Adam Casper to produce Silent Radar, right?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. New label because of how everything went with.
Yeah, that's the real talk. What
yeah.
happened there? So
it just
you were underwhelmed, if that's a word.
No, I think they were too. I think it was, Brand New Day didn't do what everybody had hoped, us included, and we parted ways with MCA at the time. And EMI jumped in pretty quickly and signed us.
It's nice to have options.
Yeah. But once again, actually, no, that's the next album I'm getting.
Yeah, well, here, let me get to a song from this album here. 1998.
Except the red lights. Nobody changes. Wanna see them tonight. Everybody gather round. Everybody drink it down. I'm feeling like a one-legged man, always made to take a stand. Any day now it will come. Any day now it will come. Any day now it will come.
Joey, let me just tell you how amazing it is that here I am on a Tuesday afternoon enjoying a delicious can of craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery, listening to amazing Watchmen songs of Joey Serlin. I think that's pretty rad.
Oh, it's fun for me too, man.
Any Day Now is, not the first single. So Stereo is the first single, but let's hear you talk just maybe a little bit about working with Adam Casper and about how this album is received.
So when we changed labels to EMI, we had the ability to meet with a number of producers, Adam being one, and without getting into some of the other producers' work, because they were all equally as great, we connected with Adam right away. And we're obviously fans of his work. I'm also a Pearl Jam fan. He was the guy, so label was good with it. We went out and recorded it at Pearl Jam Studio Litho in Seattle.
What's that like?
That's great. It's just a converted warehouse. Great live floor, huge, high ceilings. They've made quite a vibe out of the place, but the mix, the control room is very small. And then they have just a ton of gear. Like when I think about that process, like for example, just listening, we don't have a Hammond B3 player on live, but that's Benmont Tench from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers playing on there. And Adam called him, and Danny and Adam flew down to LA, and he played on Rooster as well on that track and Any Day Now. Oh, it was amazing. Like I think spent a total of 3 months there. Like Danny and I went back and mixed it with Adam. The whole band didn't do that, but I also think that's Chris Cornell's guitar amp I used on this song.
That's a fun fact.
Yeah. It was just crazy. Stuff lying around. And another funny story, I had an old orange 412 cabinet that I'd shipped a bunch of gear there, and when I shipped it back, it never made it there. It never made it home. And then I saw a live Pearl Jam show, and I'm pretty sure my 412 was on stage. But anyway, yeah, it was fantastic.
So it's kind of a bounce back, right? So
it was a bounce back, and it didn't hit what In the Trees did commercially. It did well, but It's definitely from my point of view, it's our most complete album. Yeah, in terms of songwriting, sonic quality, production, it's just everything kind of aligned there from a creative perspective.
I mean, you still hear stereo all the time on alt rock radio. I mean, that was such a big opening. That's again a hard kind of opener, and then you got Any Day Now. You can cool it down for the second single, but also a great jam. Yeah, this album's great. And these are also more Much Music videos. We all watched Stereo and Any Day Now. And this album sells more units than the previous album. So everybody's happy here.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, who in the band is the bleeding edge internet advocate from this period, this late 90s period? Because the Watchmen are like one of the more online, digitally savvy bands in Canada at the time.
It's probably Ken and Sammy, maybe. And the label, and I probably had a hand in it at the time, seeing how things were changing and music was being distributed and consumed. So that's what did they do again? They had you opened a key to an exclusive website with that.
Well, okay, there were a few things going on. Like you had a website band. I mean, a band website, a website band.
Yeah.
You had a band website for the Watchmen, but then you had one for the album, and then you had like a webzine.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Like this is really aggressive and advanced. Because I mean, I was online in '98, but it was early days for all of this, and you guys were kind of at the webzine, and you had like all of you were writing. There were lots of photos and blogs.
I know what happened. What happened though?
Yeah, well, I kind of like. So I did in this period of time. I enjoyed like different members of the band are going to blog about the tour or different things and observation and stuff. Like I feel like social
we used
media
to take
blew
turns,
all this up.
kind of. Yeah.
I miss it.
Yeah.
Like I'm still I was blogging at this time, and I'm still blogging, but I'm all alone out there. Come back to me, but.
Okay.
But yeah, you got to see cool. Like, let's say you were on tour or whatever. Like, just to hear from you guys, like, okay, we did this, and this time this person joined us for this. It was kind of cool access, and we lost it when everybody switched to social media, because that's what happened.
Yeah,
people abandoned their official sites for social media, and I think we lost a great deal.
Yeah, you're right. People now
can we bring it back?
Now websites are really just to go maybe double check some tour dates. Yeah,
just go check out tour listings and get the hell to Ticketmaster and buy a couple of tickets. But so now I'm reading my notes because I didn't remember this in real time. But on March 5th, 1998, apparently a piece of the artwork from the new album would go to a special website along with a snippet from one song from the album, and then every day, I think it is, a new piece and a new song would be posted, or every other day. And then there was a puzzle to unscramble. I think this is what you're talking about. Like, so you can kind of get the track listing and hear these bits and solve a puzzle. The first single, of course, that was on the website there was Stereo. And then you had, I think all these snippets are online for like 2 days, and then the next song would replace it. Like, it was kind of maybe almost, dare I say, too cool for school. Like, this is actually pretty smart stuff.
I wasn't even aware of all that.
Okay, well, it's shout out to Cam Gordon, who's kind of got a book project on this, and I think there'll be some talk of this in that book. But yeah, interesting time to follow what's going on, because you guys did a webcast of your Lee's Palace show.
We did a webcast, and I think what's the name of it? Where was it for this album? I think it was for this album where what's the name? We went into Manta Studios and did a live we sat down with, I think, Alan Cross, or
all right, well, he'd be the guy.
Or maybe it was Alan. I can't remember. God, why can't I remember? Anyway.
So you're here for me to jog your memory.
Yeah.
Was it Alan Cross?
Yeah, it was the name.
Was it for CFNY?
It was where they would simulcast. So it was go nationwide.
Okay.
And we did basically the whole album, and then you'd sit down and talk about it. Yeah.
Sounds like a Toronto Mike episode.
You played in front of a studio audience, about like 50 or 100 people in the studio, and then.
Oh yeah, like an intimate and interactive type. You see how much music there. Hey, so currently, meaning in 2025, one of the many podcasts I produce is the Humble and Fred podcast.
Okay.
And they do have like memorabilia from their many years on 102.1 when they were the morning show throughout the 90s, and they have like posters and stuff, and they have a Humble and Fred Fest poster. This is an event that was at Fort York in 1999, and you guys were the headliners.
Oh, cool.
Do you remember playing Humble and Fred Fest at Fort York in 1999? One of the 10,000 shows you've played as the Watchmen.
Kind of. Jogs memory. Who do you know any of the other bands that played?
Was Blurtonia on the bill? I don't want to get my Humble and Fred. Okay. There was also a cookout with a poster. I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But anyway, you were on that bill.
Okay.
So you're a part of Humble and Fred history. Not that I think Humble and Fred could actually name a Watchmen song, because I think they were secretly listening to Steely Dan.
Okay, well, I'll tell you a Humble and Fred story.
Let's hear it.
I not too long ago when Danny and I were doing our Serlin Graves project, we went and did their podcast or their show, and they said, "Oh, we're doing a they asked us to play Any Day Now," and we did, and then they asked us if we would play this horseshoe show that they're doing. There's a bunch of artists and play a couple acoustic songs.
Okay.
And then the night before the show, I slammed my finger in the car door and tore off. It was really bad.
I was at this show.
Yeah. So I let them know right away that I can't do it. I'm sorry, I would do it. And I don't think they believed me. They were pissed off.
Well,
they were not happy.
That's not a surprise, but but it was the real deal, right? You weren't bullshitting them.
No, I sent them a picture of my finger because the reply was like, "This is so."
Did they say we'll take Danny acoustic?
I should. Yeah, he should have. Yeah.
He could do some Sweet Baby James for everybody at the horseshoe. By the way, fun fact: this comeback album. As if you had one album that didn't sell as well, and maybe you're not as proud of one album.
Yeah.
He's a big comeback here. Okay. Yet another Juno nomination and yet another loss to the Tragically Hip.
There you go. I wasn't kidding. Yeah.
That's the third time.
What was the category for that? Was it album again or band?
Best rock album.
Okay. There you go.
Okay. Geez, man. Maybe we'll give you a Lifetime Achievement Award or something like that. Okay. I'm going to ask you a big Sammy Cohn question, but first I want to shout out Nick Iones, who hosts Building Toronto's Skyline, also hosts a podcast called Building Success. But we did 2 new episodes of Building Toronto Skyline on Friday. One included a talk about affordable housing with Brad Bradford. And I want to say thank you to Nick Iones for his support and urge people to check out that fine podcast. And while I'm recommending podcasts, how many times, I don't expect an exact number, Joey, but how many times do you think the Watchmen have played Regina, Saskatchewan?
Minimum 100.
100 times?
I'm guessing, yeah, but yeah.
Do you remember the venues you played?
The reason being because it was so close to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So early indie days, we would go down and that was our big road trip to go to Regina and then maybe Saskatoon and come back. Right.
Do you remember eating any pizza at Tumbler's Pizza?
No.
Okay, so no. Al Grego, who will be at TMLX 19 on June 26th, and he's won many awards for hosting Yes, We Are Open by Moneris, and he went to Regina and talked to Jim Bayton, the founder and owner of Tumbler's Pizza in Regina, and Jim shared his story from making pizza boxes at the age of 14 to building a pizza empire that sells Regina-style pizza in over 140 locations across Saskatchewan. So if you go there today, I bet you'll find a Tumbler's Pizza.
But that, like when you say 140 locations, you mean frozen in stores too? Like grocery?
No, I mean,
I don't think Regina can support 140 pizza locations.
Okay, that's a great. You know what? That's the real talk. Listen, Saskatchewan's got what, like 1 million people or something in the whole province, right?
Yeah.
If that, I'm not even sure. All right, well, this is why we all need to go and listen to the most recent episode of Yes, We Are Open and hear what Jim has to say about it. He shares the story behind the unique name, the secret formula for their incredible sauce, and the challenges faced along the way. Let's find out, is it possible that there are over 140 locations of Tumbler's Pizza across the province of Saskatchewan? Joey is skeptical, and you should be.
I don't want to just. I'm not trying to take anything away.
You're not calling Jim a liar.
No, I'm not.
No. You're just questioning it aloud.
Just questioning the math. That's
healthy,
really
actually.
impressive. Maybe it's available, like to buy at, say, all of the Safeways.
No, maybe. Do they have Sobeys in Saskatchewan?
I don't think
Maybe
so.
that's not.
I think
Doesn't
it's
go far west.
Superstore and
My wife's from
Safeway.
Edmonton, and she
Yep.
sometimes educates me about the things they have that we don't have, because we have pizza, and they have something called Pizza 47 or something.
Right.
And it's the same thing apparently, but just a different.
I still refer to things incorrectly when it comes to Loblaws and Superstore and stuff like that. Yeah.
You rooting for the? Is the Oiler game tonight?
Yes,
You rooting for the Oilers,
I am. Yeah.
even though you're a Jets fan?
Yep. Well, they're not in it, so that was tough.
No, I know, but I'm a
Yep.
Leafs fan, and I mean, I don't want to see. I don't know, the Habs or the.
No, I
Senators
wouldn't
win.
want it. I have an affinity for the Prairies and Edmonton, and I don't have a hard time going there. But I agree, if it was the Habs, I probably wouldn't.
It'd be a different story.
Yeah.
And it is kind of a fun team to root for, the
It
Oilers.
is.
And they
Yeah.
always were. Like, even in the 80s, I used to kind of make them my second team because I
Yeah.
like to see Curry and Messier.
Yeah,
and
what a
Gretzky.
dynasty. I wrote Wayne Gretzky a letter when I was little. And I took a cover of a book and I traced it. And I traced Wayne Gretzky holding the stick up in the air. And I said, Wayne, I drew this picture for you. And then I was so scared he'd know I traced it. And he'd think I'm a liar. I was a little kid, right?
That's funny.
Yeah, anyway. He wrote back.
Well, that's cool.
Well, somebody wrote back.
Somebody wrote back.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the great one, his PR people have a little work to do right now, I think, in this country. I think his
No kidding, eh?
stock has fallen. I don't know what the Watchmen think of it all, but
I'm disappointed. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's
He
very
hasn't said
disappointing.
much about it. I mean,
He hasn't-
his wife has, but
His wife, Doug Ford, Donald Trump. There are many people. Bobby Orr, I think, said something maybe. Like, there were many people speaking on behalf of Wayne Gretzky. None of them named Wayne.
I know. Bobby Orr's also a big Trump guy.
Yes, I know.
I
He
know.
put out that ad. I
Yeah.
know. I'm keeping track over here.
Yeah.
All the Trumpers.
Yeah.
Any Trumpers in the Watchmen?
No.
Okay,
No.
taking a note here.
Yeah.
You guys are still in my good books. Okay.
Yeah.
It's always disappointing. Although I just had an episode with Snow, who had the big hit Informer.
Yep.
And he's here. And we had a lovely time. We're still buds. I think I'll see him Sunday. I think he'll be at the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball game. Really likable guy. But he also has this fondness for the President of the United States of America.
Isn't it funny when, well, White Lotus did this a little bit, but isn't it funny as soon as that comes out, just the elephant that
Right,
just
it's like, oh, you're a
blows up in
Trumper.
the room. You just kind of don't know what to say or if they're kidding or, yeah.
The only other person I've had a one-on-one convo with who was like sort of a Trumper is living in Calgary, and I just chalked it up to like Albertaism.
What is going on there?
What do we do about this
I
problem?
don't know. What is going on there? It's
Jeez.
not, it's not helping anything, I'll tell you that.
No, it's not helping.
That's for sure.
We need to be united right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Last shout out, and then I'm going to ask you about Sammy. But the last shout out is to recyclemyelectronics.ca. That's where you go, Joey, if you have old electronics, old cables, old computers.
Oh, I need this.
Yeah, don't throw it in the garbage
No,
because
we
the
have
chemicals go in the landfill.
I have recording studios, so
Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca and just type in your postal code, and they'll be like, "Ooh, you can drop it off here." And you literally, I've done this. You just drop it off, and it's properly recycled, so the chemicals don't end up in our landfill. Okay.
good to know.
And here's a measuring tape for you because Ridley Funeral Home sent that over so you could measure what you wish.
No.
I don't need to know what you measure.
funny.
It's between you and your measuring gods. But,
Okay. All right.
They also, by the way, Life's Undertaking is a great podcast.
Actually, this would have been very handy because it's soft, and I just had to measure my elbow, the circumference of my elbow for a tensor bandage. I have.
Oh,
Yeah.
see,
So
you should have come here earlier.
I had to do it with like a hard,
Yeah,
to
those
bend it.
those things will cut you.
And my daughter was doing it for me. She was measuring it. And
How many kids you got?
I have 4 kids. Yeah.
That's a lot of kids.
It is. It's a lot of kids.
I have 4 kids.
Do
But
you?
well,
Good
you know
for you.
what? Okay. Brad Jones, who owns Ridley Funeral Home, has 6 kids.
Wow.
You don't hear about that unless this is like the old farming days.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, she was measuring it, and then I said, "Okay, what's it reading?" And she said, 30 feet. I said, "I'm glad I'm paying for private school."
That's funny.
Anyway.
All right, you know what? I'm going to ask you about Sammy after we listen to a little bit of this.
I see that you mean it. I see that
Joey, where the hell's Sammy Cohn? What's going on with Sammy?
Well, he's not on that, I'll tell you. We parted ways with Sammy right during the writing process for this album. We wanted to go in a different direction, which is evident on that recording. We were being influenced by electronic music, Massive Attack, different bands, and we wanted to integrate into the music. And Sammy, as a drummer, would naturally maybe feel not as comfortable about that direction, and so we agreed to disagree and move on.
Do we call this artistic differences?
We do, and there was business differences which we don't need to get into, but so we just decided to move forward without him. And it's all programmed drums on there, which you know what, it's obviously we've gotten back together and worked out things, and I hear we do this song, for example, and I prefer it with him. So
well, I think a lot of Watchmen fans would rather hear you guys have a drummer.
Yeah, well, we had a drummer when we toured. We got a drummer named Ryan Ahoff. He was a touring drummer, really fantastic drummer, but the band is so much better with Sammy in it. We have a sound with Sammy. He's a phenomenal drummer. He's a pocket drummer. I think he and I, in a lot of ways, are kind of the rhythm section. Like, I'm so anchored to what he does in his playing and his accents, and I really work off of him, and we're really syncopated from a guitar drummer perspective. So great song, and there were some great songs in the album, and it's fine. It was a different process after Silent Radar. The label really wanted to ensure we had the songs before they would greenlight the funds for the next album.
Right.
But yeah, I wish, one of my biggest regrets is that Sammy's not on this album, that's for sure.
And this is the final studio album by the Watchmen.
It is, yeah.
And the album's called Slow Motion, but you tie it to a greatest hits package, right? So you got to buy 2 CDs, like a 2 CD set.
It was a double CD, with I think the greatest hits package had a remix of Stereo on it.
Right.
Which the producer of the new stuff, Reese Fulber from Frontline Assembly, and he remixed Stereo.
Did you know that Slow Motion was ineligible for the Juno because it had too much repurposed older material?
I did not.
Like it didn't satisfy the criteria as a new album because, I don't know, X% of it was actually, like all uncovered and greatest hit stuff. I
did not know that.
That's why you didn't lose to the Hip that year.
I know. And it went gold, and the label never gave us our plaques. So a couple of years ago, I surprised the guys because it was certified. So it was easy to get them made. I had them made and surprised them on stage and gave it to them as a gift.
So in 2003, that's cool that you did that. Now in 2003, the Watchmen break up. So just definitively for the record, Joey, why did the Watchmen break up in 2003?
Burnout, just lack of inspiration, lack of new material. We just couldn't do it anymore.
It was time?
It was time, yeah, for sure. And then it was tough. It was a lot of relationship issues at the time. We'd been just like together for so many years and constantly, the way Danny says it, in each other's pockets, right? So everyone wanted to kind of branch off and have independent lives, and then we all started to have kids. I remember coming home from a tour, and my first daughter was walking, and I missed it, and I just was enough, right?
Yeah, I hear you. Makes sense. So tell me, like, what do you do after the Watchmen, when the Watchmen break up in 2003? I've got some cool names you're working with, but let's hear it from you. What did you do to spend your time?
Well, I actually thought I was going to do an album with Danny, but he decided to go in a different direction and really and I don't, at the time I was pissed off about it. But
is this Doctor?
Yeah, it was. So we were supposed to do something, and he did. He told me, you know what, I'm going to do something else. And I get it. That was his opportunity to try something else completely. It would have been, a lot of similarities to do another album with me at that point. So But what it did, it really forced my hand to figure out my next chapter. So in a lot of ways, I'm grateful that whether it was intentional or not, he forced me how to figure things out. So I started to write. I did a lot. I wrote music for film. I did music for video games. I wrote some songs for some Canadian Idol winners. Co-wrote a song with Randy Bachman and Simon Wilcox for a Canadian Idol winner. And then...
and these winners are Ryan Malcolm and Kaylin Porter.
That's right. Yep.
And Kaylin, I'm remembering now, I'm thinking back at the time, a little bit like a young Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
A
little bit undersized, but...
so is Gretzky kind of.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You just need Dave Semenko to be on his wing.
Yeah. So we did that, and then I got into starting to write for advertising, and then that really put me down a path of getting into that, like having a post-audio company, and I started a company which has really grown.
And this is Vapor Music?
Yeah.
Okay, give us the name here, Vapor Music.
Vapor Music, yeah. We've got a really talented group of people working there, and 5 studios in Toronto. We got a studio in Vancouver. And we've branched off. Now we have another company called Long Division. We do a lot of animated kid shows. We have music supervisors that do live action film and television. And
so now you're making some money.
Yeah, that's how I have 4 kids. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, geez. I got some. So I know. I'm doing a little work on what Vapor's up to and what you're doing. You mentioned these international commercials. And these brands, okay, man. These are some of the biggest brands in the world. Like Budweiser, Coca-Cola, Nintendo, GM, Nissan, Chrysler. These aren't, with all due respect, this isn't, Great Lakes Brewery, Palma Pasta. These are some huge brands that you worked with. Like, are there any music from any ads for any of those brands that you are responsible for that many listeners might actually recognize?
Yeah. A lot of the commercials you see on TV, my company did it. Like whether it's during hockey games or watching TV. Yeah, we do. We have as they say, a large market share. Yeah.
Vape, and you're a partner with Vapor Music.
Yeah. I'm the owner. My wife and I own it.
Okay, so partners underselling you. You are a founder of Vapor Music.
Mm-hmm.
Look at you.
I know. Look at that. That's why I had to turn
I had no idea.
That's why I had to turn my phone off for this interview. Yeah. You can see this.
And the father of a Guelph Storm. What position does your son play?
He's right wing, but they used him at center last year. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And 3 daughters. Yeah.
Well, like I said off the top, Michael Lang's kids following his career. Yeah. I think he's even shared photos of like Serlin on the ice. It's like, do you know who this guy's dad is? Pretty cool. Okay.
Actually, I'll tell you a story. I'll send it to you after. There's a guy named Sean Fafaro. He's like the TV guy for the Kitchener Rangers, and he interviewed my son between periods.
I've seen it because it used lines of Watchmen titles of songs by the Watchmen.
It was really clever.
Very clever.
Yeah.
Any day now you'll
Any day now you might
Very clever. I have seen this. Absolutely. Yeah. That's very cool. Okay, so Vapor, I'm going to play one last song here, but sure. Vapor's still a going concern. This is your full-time gig, feeding 4 kids, and we know how expensive hockey and everything is. Mm-hmm. I know this better than anybody. But we'd be remiss before we close the Watchmen chapter. We mentioned you're coming to the Danforth Music Hall in June.
Yep.
So you have reunited.
Oh, we've been reunited for quite a while. Yeah,
I've been there. I've seen you guys live. So, okay, so maybe give me an idea. Like since you all have other jobs, right? Sammy's drumming up results as a very successful real estate agent. Everybody's working.
Is that his tagline?
Yeah. In fact, for 1 month at least, Sammy's a good businessman. Like he was such a hard negotiator, but we had a month.
For a guy that's not so strong at math, he is a good businessman. Yeah,
that's funny. He did sponsor Toronto Mike for a month, and the thing I would say in the intro was that Sammy Cohn was drumming up results.
I love it. Yeah,
and I think if you got a free consultation or something, or you talk to Sammy or whatever, I think he was going to throw in like a free drumming lesson or something.
That sounds very Sammy.
Like Sammy.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, drumming up results.
You know why? Because that doesn't cost him anything.
That's funny. You can say that. Okay. Yeah. Now, you guys are back. So how many shows a year might the Watchmen play typically? Because you're also busy with these other gigs and family and everything.
I'd say maybe 15 to 20, maybe. Yeah.
That's more than I would have guessed.
Yeah.
Okay, and in the summer, I guess you got to go do a bunch of like festivals and stuff.
Yeah, I've got some coming up this summer.
You got the life, right? Because you got the main gig or whatever.
You know what? I'm enjoying it more than I did when we were in the thick of it. Probably because my entire livelihood's not resting on it, and I appreciate it as well. Like, I just appreciate the support, and I feel very, very grateful that we can go play the Danforth and sell it out, and people are into it. It's
and everybody's singing. What I can only imagine what it's like, but I've been to fairly recently. I've been to Watchmen shows, and when the crowd is singing back to you, like, what's that feeling like? You're on the stage, the crowd is singing your songs back to you.
They sing every word. It's crazy. I know. It's funny. At the Danforth, my 2 youngest daughters are going to come out, and they have no idea. They just think every once in a while my wife will be driving. You say that's Daddy on the radio or something, but
stereos on the radio or whatever.
But and the other day,
their minds are going to be blown.
I know they use stereo at the beginning of the Jets game, and it was a pretty elaborate film, and my that's Daddy. It's kind of funny. So I'm looking forward to them being there. Jeez. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I think we're enjoying it more. I wish I could go back in time and be a little more grateful when I was doing it.
But you kind of can, because you're going to be doing that at the.
Well, that's true.
I was going to say at the Danforth Music Hall. What date again? And is this sold out?
It's very close. I think there's like 5% left or something.
Any room on that will call list for Toronto Mike?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, what am I supposed to say now, man?
Well, I did give you lasagna and beer and
a tape measure
and a book. Toronto Maple Leafs
book.
So here's how I want to end. So the Watchmen, I feel like that's a pretty good history of the Watchmen. I really meant it off the top. I feel the Watchmen are underappreciated, considering the quality commercially and critically, the success of the music that you guys put out in that period of time. Like, I'm still, ask my kids, I live kind of with 90s alt rock, and it's a staple. The Watchmen are a staple.
Thank you, man.
And I'm sorry the hip kept beating you.
That's okay. It's good to lose to them.
They have a larger catalog, okay?
They do. They have a significant body of work. They do. Yeah.
All right, last jam before we take our photo by Toronto Tree here.
How did I get here? How did this fall on me? I should have kept my hand down. Now I'm seeing things I can't unsee. I've grown so weary, and I just can't buy a rest. I should just walk away, but I can't leave this mess. So I'm calling out to the one I love to rescue me. Now I'm seasick and I just wanna go. The waves are crashing over me like 1,000-year-old stone. So smooth out my rough edges and hear all my confessions. Let the endless sea just carry me back to what I should have known. I can't make it alone.
I wanted to close with some Serlin Graves. So maybe share a little bit about how, you and Danny hooked up for this album, Sad Songs for Sale.
I just wanted to let the beat drop at first.
Well, you're the conductor, man. I do as you wish. Absolutely.
One of the reasons that I think the band stopped, or why I stopped, I just stopped writing songs. I don't know what. Just creatively, I just kind of dried up in that way, and I became, I think, very good at my craft in terms of recording, probably because of what I do for a living, but I didn't write songs for a long time. And then somewhere in and around COVID, all of a sudden I started to just, out of nowhere, write a lot of songs, like complete full lyrics songs that are on that album that I wrote in 10 minutes. And I hadn't had that kind of output, say, since like writing Any Day Now or something.
Interesting.
So I think it was my natural instinct to reach out to Danny and see if he wants to sing them. And I said, I have all these songs. Do you want to sing them? And he said, well, I too have a lot of songs. So he brought a lot of songs to the table, and I would go down to a motel during the day, and he'd have a piano there and a bit of a PA, and we started to hammer out all these songs.
Shout out to Parkdale.
That's right. And put an album together, and then I have studios. And so we did it at Vapor. I went with engineer drummer Ryan Chalmers and bassist Dustin Anstey, who works at Vapor. Both those guys work for Vapor. And
where is this studio?
It's Spadina, Adelaide. Oh. Yeah. So we just kind of made an album and put it out. Now, really smart to write an album during COVID, not smart to release one during COVID, but it was more I hadn't managed my expectations about any type of commercial. It was more a passion project, I think.
So my big question is, you have these songs, you and Danny, that you're releasing as Serlin Graves.
Yeah.
Why not a new Watchmen album? Like, why not, Ken's very active.
I know.
Sammy would love to do it.
I'll be honest, our process sometimes is, my fear was that it would just slow down the process. And I wanted to just put it out. I didn't want to compromise. And I didn't want to deliberate over parts or arrangements and just put it out there. Now, that being said, I've written a couple more songs, as has Danny, and those will be Watchmen songs.
So will there be a new release from the Watchmen?
There will be
Is this an announcement?
Oh, I don't know if it's an announcement, but we're working on new songs, and we're going to take a similar approach to what we did with Serlin Graves. We'll probably do them at Vapor, and I don't think we'll wait till we have a full album, but we'll start to put out new material piecemeal. I think that's what's held us back, is we have such a traditional sense of how you do it, and we need to realize times have changed,
Okay, it's only interesting to me that you might have the lead singer of the Tragically Hip, Gord Downey, might do a solo show, and he'll struggle to fill like the Horseshoe Tavern. Okay, This is Gord Downey.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if he has the Tragically Hip with him and it's billed as the Tragically Hip, he can fill up the Scotiabank Arena for like 3 or 4 nights in a row. Like, obviously back when the band was active.
It would have been. But yeah, I know where you're going.
Yeah, so you know where I'm going, which is interesting. It's always interesting to me where I sit here as a non-musician, just interested in chatting with you guys, that Serlin Graves might play like a TMLX event, but my point is, you do this with the Watchmen and people pay attention.
Yep.
It's like the brand is everything.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if it's the same voice and the same guitarist.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah. It's absolutely true. It would have been a better commercial decision probably to put that out as.
And that's not everything.
Yeah, no, it's not everything.
But I'm saying this Watchmen album, I think, will make more noise than Serlin Graves because it's the Watchmen.
Absolutely. Yeah, it will.
You know who's a big fan of yours? Big fan of yours is Jay Onright. Do you know Jay? Do you know this name?
Yes.
So Jay and he had a show on TSN. He's still got the show, I suppose, of course. But Dan O'Toole's no longer on the show.
Yeah.
But Jay Onright grew up in, I got to get this right. I always screw it up. Don't correct me till I try this, okay? It's in Alberta. It's near Edmonton. It starts with an A. Geez, what word am I trying to say? Athabascar? No, that's terrible.
It's not where Nickelback's from, is it?
No, they're from Hanna, Alberta, I think. This is, I'm going to have to Google this one.
Just Google it.
Terrible that I'm struggling in the final words here. You know what? I don't edit these things. So
you don't want to leave things.
So he's from, this is a long-winded way of me telling you, he's from Athabasca.
Oh, you're right. Don't doubt yourself.
I think I was right, but when I said it out loud, it sounded made up to me. But Athabasca, Alberta, huge fan of the Watchmen. So I just popped in my head as I was saying goodbye to you. But you were amazing. There's many fans, and I would love to see you at the Danforth Music Hall. And
just let us know.
Thanks for doing this. I've now completed the set.
I know.
I don't know what that gets me, but I have every member of the Watchmen. But there's still one member who didn't visit the basement. Ken actually.
He wouldn't fit down here, man.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
too
we have
tall.
to record a episode of everybody backstage at the Danforth Music Hall. But thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you. It was a lot of fun. It was a trip.
And I apologize to Jay Unright that I could not confidently say Athabasca. But I'll get it right next
Okay,
time.
you fixed it.
I fixed it. And that. Oh, by the way, what do you think about the number 1700? That's a round number. Your episode 1700.
I like it. I like it a lot.
That brings us to the end of our 1700th show. Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery, Palma Pasta, don't leave without your lasagna, Moneris, Toronto Maple Leafs Baseball. I'm throwing out the first pitch on Sunday. That's happening. 2 p.m. start. Christie Pitts. RecycleMyElectronics.ca, Building Toronto Skyline, and Ridley Funeral Home. See you all tomorrow, and my special guest is fiddler Ann Lindsay. See you all then.